Hi, this is Isabel. How are you? This is February's Q&A, so welcome for those of you who are connecting now. Let me know also if this time suits you in the evening at 7 o'clock. It's to give you time to get home and settle a little bit. If you think it's too late, too early, also put in the comments that you would like to have it maybe at a different time. I think it's always interesting to have feedback. I'm also open to do it maybe at lunchtime. Just let me know what suits you best. So today I want to talk about career trends in Switzerland, because this is something that I get a lot of questions on. And this is actually important because if you want to understand where you can apply, you need to understand the market. And this is something that I always connect. You know, it's the person and the market, and the two have to match. So if you have a great person with lots of skills, but market doesn't offer anything, you can do it. And if you have a great market with lots of jobs, but people are not qualified, you also have a problem. And I think right now what we see is a little bit of a mixture of both. You have overqualified people and the market doesn't offer those kinds of jobs, etc., etc. So I want to give you as clear of a picture today, and feel free to comment as well. I have someone, Nicholas, that says watching you. Well, thank you very much, wherever you're from. Always happy to see new people also, because I have the usual people that connect and sometimes I have new ones, so it's always interesting. And this video will be reposted in my social media so that those of you who maybe missed the beginning or you're afraid that you didn't catch everything, it's going to stay there. That's why I always repost and put it on YouTube, etc. So let's get started on the topic. So I will talk a little bit about the market, and then I will tell you a little bit about skills as well, and companies that are hiring in Switzerland based on the research that I've done. So the first thing is I have good news. I've done some research on the Adecco Group. There was a report and I put the link below after the call. The good news is that hiring is happening in Switzerland. So just to give you a few statistics for those of you who like numbers, we are on plus 25% on advertised jobs, so that's good. And temporary jobs grew by 15.3%, so that's also good for those of you who are looking for temp jobs. So the market in terms of health and in terms of growth is definitely there. There's more growth going on in the Romandie part, in the French part. So I would say between Geneva and I guess we can take it up to Bern, the French-speaking part of Bern. So that whole section of Switzerland is actually doing very well. The other part of Switzerland, Zurich, is also doing very well. So this is basically just to let you know that Switzerland is actually a place that's growing in terms of job potential. So now you're going to say, well, this is great. And again, you can look at this in detail. We'll post the link. But which fields are actually growing and which ones are a little bit stale or not really hiring? And this is actually a problem I'm facing with a lot of clients, because the jobs, again, as I was saying earlier, or the qualifications are not necessarily matching the places that are hiring or the skill sets needed. So there is some growth, that's for sure. But the growth is not necessarily happening in the jobs that people are qualified to do. So in other words, what we see really growing right now, and I don't know if you follow the news and watch a little bit on the internet, it's really anything that's quite technical. So in my view, we're really on a different revolution right now, and it's the digital revolution. So we had the industrialization that was happening, and that changed how we consume, how we work. And now we're going through the digitalization of the world, meaning that the jobs that we used to do are disappearing or are getting automated. So that has a huge impact on how we work and how we prepare ourselves for the jobs of tomorrow. And this is a topic that I follow a little bit everywhere to see about the trends. So what that means for you in concrete terms is that depending on what you do right now, you may not find an alignment with what the market offers. Hi, Kishan, I see Cameron that just made it. Hi. So what is growing, based on my research that I've done and also the feedback I get regularly from the market, anything related to IT and engineering, I would say, are the winners in 2018. So if you're either IT or engineer, you are a star to find a job in Switzerland. There's actually a lack of resources, so companies are really looking for those profiles. anything also connected. So in terms of IT, even more specifically in web development. So these people are really, really wanted. You can do web development, what they call full stack, or you can do WordPress, or you can do coding. This is really, really wanted in Switzerland. So if you train in those fields, or you're thinking about what you can do to market yourself better, definitely engineering and IT. MedTech is actually a growing field in Switzerland. So Switzerland has really put a lot of emphasis on developing the medical field. So that's something that they've invested in a lot of startups. So if you look at statistics, you can see that in Switzerland we have a lot of startups in the medical field, in bio, pharma as well. So you have a lot of specialists working in Switzerland. So if you're interested in these fields, biotech, medtech, you have a huge market, especially here in the Romandie part where I live. You have a lot of potential for jobs. So again, it's very specific. They're usually looking for competencies in the medical field, people who are analysts, business analysts, again IT, but in medtech, etc. So this is actually a growing field. Sales is also always wanted. The good things with sales is that you can do it in any industry. So I think any company will need marketing and sales. So if you're really good in your field, this is a transferable skill you can use that's also wanted in Switzerland. So if you've done sales for a company, I find that the most successful of my clients are the ones who have done sales. Because first of all, they would know how to speak and how to sell a product, hands themselves when they're looking for a job. So it's it's a little bit easier for them to make the transition. And because any company needs sales, really, you can plug yourself in fairly fast. The food services is also a growing field. So if you've worked in restoration, hotel management, there's always jobs. However, I'll put a caveat to that. If you're looking for a job in hotel management, you need the language skills. So in Switzerland, that's a big thing. And I talked about it in my Monday motivation video. The problem sometimes with expats is that they're a little bit low on language skills. They speak English, maybe sometimes a second language. It's a little bit small for Switzerland. So the languages that are really wanted based on hotel management, for example, if you speak Chinese or Mandarin, those languages where you have a lot of tourists. So if you speak also Arabic, that could be useful. So in luxury stores, for example, a lot of people want to work in these kinds of jobs. You do need quite intense language skills. Swiss German if you're in Zurich, and French also if you're in Romandie, that would be very helpful. So I think really you have to tab on one of the two if you're an expat looking for a job. It's either you're going to increase your language skills where you're going to be able to market yourself to get those jobs where language skills are required, or you're going to have to go to become a technical person in a specific field. So either you become very good in sales, or you become very good in marketing or in IT, and you can say, I'm really good at this, and therefore, people will want to hire you. So you have to become really a specialist, which is another specificity with the Swiss market. They like people who are specialists. They don't really want people who know how to do a little bit of everything. So they're known for this, precision specialists. The Swiss are known for jewelry and watchmaking. They have the best specialists here. Same thing in finance. So anything that's done in Switzerland is usually high quality, done by specialists that have trained to become the best at what they do. And that's really their selling point as well towards the rest of the world. You can get a lot of stuff done everywhere. In terms of products and services, what's the differentiator with Switzerland? Where the purchasing price is higher, it's definitely the skills of the people who create the products and the services. So you have a lot of highly qualified people, and you probably noticed if you look around you and maybe you meet neighbors and people around you, you see a lot of highly specialized technical people. So you realize quickly, if you want to have a future in Switzerland, you need to, again, I would bet on one of the two, either the languages or the technical part, if you're not so much of a language person. So following hotel industry, I had two more that are growing in Switzerland: trade and construction. So I have a chart that I printed, really the top 3 growth areas in Switzerland. Number 1, it's a huge growth, 74% IT, so that's the field to get in Switzerland. Number 2, industry and transport. So anything that's maybe supply chain, those kinds of things are actually growing. And number 3 is bioscience. So I was explaining a little bit earlier. So if you're maybe a lab technician or someone working in that kind of sector, you have your chances to work in Switzerland. And really the bad news, and I'm getting to that right now, also banking, just to finish on banking, also is a sector where you can find a lot of jobs. Finance sector in Geneva is hiring. There's a lot of potential for people who are specialists also in wealth management. Again, the IT part of finance would work as well. But again, it's people that have the international experience. You can work with international clients, maybe in wealth management or in account management, etc. So you do have this in Geneva and in Zurich. Now, based on this chart, there are also some losing, I would say, sectors or areas of work. And it's really everything that's, I would say, in the middle. Really, when you look at the market, you basically have the day-to-day jobs or the, restaurant, food and taking care, nannies and taking care of old people, etc., which would be the type of jobs that I call that the day-to-day, I would say lower skilled jobs. Then you have the average, which would be people working as support, the back office, basically admin assistants and, the accountants and all that. And then you have the high skilled jobs. So if you look at the spectrum, the high skilled jobs are really in demand. If you're someone that's a specialist that has trained for many years, there's a chance that you can find a job. If you're also on the lower end, meaning you can do, I don't know, watch kids, be a nanny, or you can work in a restaurant, serving food or whatever. So you can find those jobs as well, in Switzerland. However, if you're in the middle, meaning, again, admin, assistant, or mid-management, generalist, all these jobs, project managers, I get a lot of people that are in this area. So they don't have really a high specialist skills, but they're not, looking for a job to serve food in a restaurant, neither. They're actually in the middle. Maybe they've been an accountant or they've been a project manager working for a company. And really, I think that this average section is getting crunched at this stage with this digitalization, I call it, that's happening for us right now, because basically the more you automate, the more you can do those things on the computer. So accounting is getting more and more automated. Admin assistants, now you have a lot of apps that can do the work for you, organize things for you. So they're still there. There's still some jobs for now, but it's definitely something I tell my clients, the ones that are wondering where to go in terms of career. I don't advise that they go towards support roles, because this is, in my view, and again, this is just my perspective based on videos I watch and research that I do. This is not a growth area. This is actually more of a declining area. So if I'm young and I am going to school and I want to pursue a career, if I have children, I'm not going to tell them go and become, an accountant or an admin assistant, because those jobs are probably gone in 10 years. So you want to encourage people to do something specialized. That's going to be a skill that's really hard to duplicate or to automate. So it means, something a little more creative, that requires a lot of thinking, that requires a lot of training, that's not easy to put online on a computer, etc. So basically, yeah, this is something to remember if you're thinking, what are my options in Switzerland, or where should I go? There's less of those jobs, so those are definitely declining in terms of admin support. Again, I would say anything that's connected to HR and finance. So I call that the back office. So I remember when I started my career, and I say this in my videos, we used to be a lot of people in support roles where we basically flip paper all day long. It was quite heavy duty administration, because you had to make copies and scan and send, an email would take half an hour, etc. So there was a need to have a lot of people doing the back office. And even in the last companies where I worked, just accounting is a huge task, because you have someone that's actually collecting the forms, another one that's doing the checking, entering in the computer. All that is creating jobs. But if you eliminate this through a system, because you automate it, the whole flow, then instead of 3, you only need 1 person. And that's the reason why I'm not encouraging people to go towards those roles, because I find that their time is counted where they will keep hiring in those functions. So for the clients that I have who are looking in finance, in HR, in the support roles again, there are some jobs. So of course we want to focus on what's available, but just keeping in mind that it will take longer to find those jobs because, you know, maybe you have one opening here and there, but people don't really move that much. Switzerland is a small country in terms of size, so you can only imagine the big cities would have more of those functions in the big companies, but again, they're not changing every week, so people also tend to be more conservative. So the idea is that if you secure a job, you keep it for a while, unless you're a temp or you're fired or something happens. I think more generally people would hang on to their jobs. So I was talking to someone from Australia who said, you know, over there it's actually not so good to stay long. You want to rotate every 2 years, basically. And people are looking for this as well. They're looking forward to it. It's let's move on, you know, let's try something new is more Australian, I suppose. Well, in Switzerland, it's not really the case. In Switzerland, it's more, let's see how long I can stay in a job. You know, it's safe. I know my boss. I have my holiday time or my paid, you know, time off and all kind of perks. So people don't move that way quickly. And if you look at also the market in Geneva, for example, you have the UN, which is a huge employer, but same things. I don't think the jobs rotate that much. I mean, if you have a good job at the UN, why would you leave? I mean, you have good benefits, you're comfortable, you know, I had clients who work for the international organizations and sometimes they want to leave, but they're so comfortable that it's almost the push and pull. I want to try something new, but I'm comfortable, and therefore it's always an internal fight, and sometimes comfort takes over and people don't leave their job, meaning, you know, you're waiting for a job opening, but people don't leave. So on one hand, you have very, very comfortable employees who don't rotate that much on the market, and when there's jobs openings, everyone applies, especially the ones where English is spoken. So you have this market. That's why I tell people, be patient. The rotation is not quick. You have to wait. You have to take into account it's not going to be a couple of weeks, sometimes not even a couple of months. I have clients who get called 6 months after their application. So the timeline in Switzerland is different from anything you may have known before. So if you worked in the US or in the UK where things are very fast, here it's a different rhythm. People take their time. They don't want to make an error. There's this big fear of making an error. So when there's a job opening, recruiters will call you in as many times as possible. They want to be 100% sure. If they hesitate, they would probably cancel altogether rather than to hire someone based on doubt. At least that's my experience working in recruitment. The fear factor is very strong. So it's always let's check, let's triple check, check 6 times before we make an offer. So on the candidate part, for you out there looking for a position, of course the timeline is long, you know, and that's why, you know, I also work with people to find creative solutions. It's what do you do whilst, you know, time flies by, you know, 1 month, 6 months, a year, and you're still looking, and then you get the question, why are you looking? So it's a catch-22. You're waiting for the process to move forward. At the same time, you need to be doing something. So it's quite difficult mentally to manage the two and to adapt also to the Swiss space. So so that's something also you need to give yourself some credit for, is to say, okay, this is a new culture. This is a different way of doing research on finding a job. So you can't have the same timeline maybe that you had before. So yeah, definitely in terms of market growth, it's not happening for those jobs in the middle. So if now your training is, let's say, human resources, finance, or any back office job, you're probably not going to find a huge amount of positions to apply to. So yeah, there's different options then. You know, it's to retrain in something new based on the areas that are growing. You know, I think now it's going to be a must in the future. People will probably have different careers in their lifetime, because things will change so quickly that whatever you learn in IT, for example, they're used to it. You know, technology becomes obsolete so quickly that they always have to train themselves. So, but this is something that has always been connected to IT jobs, as far as I can tell, but it hasn't been the case for support roles. In the time when I was working, when I started working in human resources, whatever skills you had based on your degree, you were good to go for a good 10 years. I mean, you would still learn inside the company, but you didn't have to go and do new certificates, and continuous learning wasn't as big. And now it's going to be a must. So now it's going to be a basic requirement that you always learn new things, you adapt to new roles, and okay, if there's no more jobs in HR, okay, maybe you do something else, or in finance. So really what I would do in your position, if you're looking at what should I do because I'm in a back office type of role and I'm not finding anything, would be a skills assessment. Would be, okay, now I need to assess my skills, see what I know how to do, what I can do in Switzerland, what are the openings I can apply for, and if there's a gap, then maybe I need to do a certificate locally or training so that I can apply for these positions. And of course, it's a change. It's having to learn new skills, having to maybe go back to do some additional training to market yourself. I mean, if you still have some years to go to work, obviously it's a necessity. Now, the issue is also about how long you stay in Switzerland. If you're here temporarily, to do a certificate in Switzerland that's going to cost you 20,000 or 30,000 Swiss francs may be a big decision. What I really like, and what I found, and I shared the page today, there's this option now of a portable career, so working online. And I know someone who's also focused on that, on the working from home type of jobs. And I find that it's a real solution to expats that are only speaking English, or who don't want to invest because it's not so easy, especially if you're dual income type of career. One person stays home for the children. It's hard to have both people completely invested 100% in training and careers and so forth. And I find that that's a reasonable, I would say, at least I find it as a reasonable option. And I want to promote it more on my social media, this whole idea of working from home, working online, because English is usually enough. I found this page again very useful, where this gentleman was talking about, or I don't know if it's a lady, but the person was talking about all the job openings that are out there, but not necessarily in Switzerland. And it's more working by mission. So it's not some necessarily working for a company, but it's, okay, what are the missions out there? What are the assignments? And just selling your skills worldwide, basically. So maybe you have someone in China that needs translation, or you have someone in Romania that needs accounting work or finance work, or I don't know, whatever skill you have. So instead of going and finding a Swiss company where you're going to have to retrain for everything from basically 2 years or something like that as a master's, for example, which is an option that I find interesting but not necessarily helpful depending on what you're doing. So rather than to spend all this money, time, effort, especially again if you're staying short term in Switzerland, why not consider yourself an expat by trade, especially if that's your lifestyle and it's a dual career income, and you travel around the world, and maybe you have a spouse that will probably be changing countries soon. Why not focus on developing a home business, and therefore you can take it with you around the world? And now we are more and more working, again, because the trend of digital work is actually expanding. I think really now we're going to have worldwide employees. So it's not going to matter where you work from. It's going to be more based on the skills and value you bring to this world. So people are not going to care that you're sitting in Vietnam or in, I don't know, South America. If you're a good blogger and you can write well, people will subscribe your services. Same thing, if you're a good coach and you have a specificity where you're very good, people will call you from wherever in the world to talk to you. If you're a digital marketer and you're very good at what you do, same thing, doesn't matter. You sit in Zurich or Geneva. If someone in the US wants your services, they can hire you. So I would really think that defining a specialty, something that you're good at based on your history, and really marketing yourself directly to employers based on a mission-based type of thing, seems to me like a less difficult and less complicated type of option than going back to a school where you may or may not have options afterwards, because it's always the thing when you go to school, it's great, you're gaining skills, but how is that going to be transferable to an actual job? So, and it's something that I find is not necessarily explained to expats. I mean, sometimes you have all these potential trainings out there, and of course people want you to sign up, but the question should really be, how is this training going to help you achieve your goal? And sometimes people don't necessarily need training, or at least they need more training about how to sell themselves. And this is something that I find more and more working with clients. It's more the skill about knowing what you're good at, so doing the skills assessment, knowing how to communicate that to the world, and making an impact. And then you already have the skills inside of you, you already know what to do, but it's just communicating it in a visible manner where people get engaged with you and want to work with you, and that's all you need. So you don't need to go and get an extra degree and an extra degree. This is just going to take you time, money, and confusion. And really, I find that while you're in school, it could be great to have a certain degree, for example, to be credible in your field, but anything after that is almost not going to add more value. So for example, if you've worked for big companies, multinationals, and they want you to have a master's degree, for example, to be considered for a position. Okay, that's fine, you get the master's, but then anything else that you may go and get another master and another master, that's just too many masters after a while. You see what I mean? Once you have the master's level, that's fine, you pass the exam and that's it, you're a master's person. So you don't need to get, and I see people with double, triple masters. It's like, how much more master can you get? So that's what I mean by not overdoing it on education. So I have a question from Sharon. She says, for the online jobs, can you give some references for taxation work? Well, online jobs, so it depends. For example, the site that I'm thinking of, which is the biggest one, is Upwork.com, and this is where you can sign up as a digital marketer or consultant, etc., etc. Taxation, in my view, is very localized, because if you know taxes in Switzerland, it's not the same as, you know, any type of a country. However, this is more becoming an independent consultant where you live, but you would need to know basically the local taxation. So I'm not sure if it's taxation for big multinationals where you would be more working more with those kinds of clients, or if it's more taxation for individuals, for example, in the local area where you are. So that will determine a little bit where your clients are. So it's really finding out, where are my clients for the type of work that I do, and how do I reach out to them, and then find the right venue. And the right venue could be just having your own website and publishing it in the right blogs, for example. That's more for the local market. If you're targeting bigger worldwide clients, then a site like Upwork could really ease the pain for you, because you registered there and everything is automated from the mandate to the payment. You don't have to build a website. And again, it depends what type of clients, but if you're really Swiss based, then of course on Upwork it's more international, so you may not find those local clients on Upwork. So it's really depending if you're providing a service that's more applicable to your local market, or if you're delivering value that could be used worldwide. And again, I would really think that the more your skills could be transferable worldwide, the more you could have this portable career. So if you're doing taxation, for example, the more you know a little bit beyond the local market, the more you could sell yourself to help clients a little bit beyond borders. But I understand, in my view, taxation is very localized, because there's so many different taxation based on the country, and if it's individual companies, I mean, it's quite complicated. But I do help in terms of supporting people, of course, with finding a job and also starting their own business. So whether it's an independent consultant, starting a business with someone, that's also a solution when you see that the local market is not really bringing you an actual job in a company. It's to start as an independent consultant. So it's really what I'm recommending the most as a solution. So I'm not sure if that was the answer to the question for Sharon on taxation work. Digital jobs, the ones that are really the jobs of the future, tend to be more around marketing, sales, IT work. That's very easy to do digital. I'm not too sure about finance, maybe finance for multinationals where they would need independent consultants here and there. But I see it more as those digital jobs for online work as a portable career. But maybe you can see with taxation what could be done on a more global basis, and so that you can sell yourself a little bit more broadly than just finding a job in Switzerland. So really the two things that I see as a way to increase your potential to secure a career in Switzerland is either develop the languages or develop a technical skill that you can find clients if you're an independent consultant, or companies, by looking at what the market is looking for. So before I move on, any other questions besides Sharon before I talk about where the jobs are and all that? I don't see anything. Okay. So in terms of companies hiring in Switzerland, it's very easy to get a good view of the market by checking two websites, and I'll post them below. It's a website called Indeed.ch, and it's actually, Indeed is worldwide. So based on the country you live in, it's Indeed and then the country. So Indeed.ch gives you a very good view of all the jobs because it's an aggregator. So it's basically, it's like Google for jobs. So it's looking for all the different websites and placement agencies where the jobs are posted, and it gives you the market basically. So if you type accountant Geneva, you will have all the accountant jobs in Geneva. Not always all of them, because again, it's an aggregator. It may not find exactly all the jobs, but you will have a good sense of what's out there. So if you do accountant Geneva or accountant Zurich, you will see all the different jobs out there. You can view, which companies are actually hiring, where are they located exactly, what kind of skills is out there. So to do your broad search, Indeed.ch is a good place, and Neuvoo.ch is a good place. So it's spelled Neuvoo.ch. So that, with those two, you can find out pretty much what's out there in Switzerland. I use them all the time just to see, what jobs are hiring and which companies, etc. Those two. Then you have more specific places to find specific jobs. So if you're finance or HR or wherever, I have a complete listing in my career package where I give some exact links of different places to find the specialist jobs that are listed a little bit separately or harder to find just by doing the broad search. It's all based on how much you go deep into finding the information, because the web is quite big. Obviously, Google could help also. If you type accountant Geneva, you will also have searches that will pull out. But same thing with LinkedIn, same thing. If you type under the job section, accountant Geneva, you will always have a listing of jobs. So for me, this is like the high level type of search that I'm sharing with you, where you get the main market, and then there's the more specific places where you can go to go a little bit more in depth, to do more in-depth research, to find those maybe not well listed type of jobs, because again, if they don't get pulled, maybe they weren't listed correctly, maybe the website is not with the SEO is not really properly connected to Google, and therefore it's not coming up. So there could be many reasons why you don't get all the jobs by doing a research on Google or on LinkedIn, or because again, it's sometimes you have to go a little bit deeper to find it. So those two websites, Neuvoo and Indeed, will give you a good idea. In Switzerland, most of the jobs are found via placement agencies. It's quite a popular way to find a job. I see Zikan is asking me a question. In my case, I'm a young individual, worked as a funding specialist on Wall Street. I specialized in sales of business loans and made an incredible portfolio in the firm I was working at, and then it got cut. I can specialize, and then it got cut. So I'm a young individual, worked as a funding specialist on Wall Street. I specialize in the sales of business loans. Well, if you worked, even if the question got cut off, if you worked in Wall Street, you're a finance person. So there's a huge banking sector in Geneva and also in Zurich. They have a lot of finance. You could probably find something, especially sales of business loans. That seems interesting for a lot of employers. If you have a portfolio, that's also sounding good. Now, my question would be nationality. You know, do you have an EU nationality to apply in Switzerland? And languages, same thing. So it looks like you're a technical specialist. This is great. But then are you someone that they can get you a permit, EU nationality, and do you have language skills? Because most banks, finance sectors, insurance, they will want to see do you speak at least English and French or English and German. The question maybe is not cut off anymore here. It gets cut off. I can't read the end. But yeah, this would be my recommendation in terms of your strategy for looking for a job, your nationality and languages. So that would be the two things. So I don't know what your nationality is. I can't tell. If you worked in Wall Street and you have an American citizenship, if you're non-EU, basically, most companies are not going to hire you because they would prefer, and again, it's not that they prefer, really, it's the paperwork is too heavy for non-EU, and that's what I explained. Well, first of all, there was a votation. The Swiss voted against massive immigration, meaning that each canton now has to apply the results of the votation. They have to go with what the citizens voted for. So that means each canton will have to decide, you know, is that going to be a maximum number of permits allocated? Is it going to be a very light type of selection, meaning that the recruiters will individually think of who they hire? I'll need a permit. Yeah, if you're non-EU, it's going to be very hard to be hired by banks or the finance sector, especially the finance sector. I mean, they want people who reside in Switzerland, who obviously in banks you would need probably 2 languages minimum, and they would want you to have a permit already or be in Europe. And you know, you would have to be very, very good even if you live in Europe so that they have you come to work for them. Because again, I think banking in a way would be those middle jobs where I was explaining earlier. If you're working in this middle category, so they may not need many people. That's what I mean. So they may have enough on the local market. So I believe I speak 6 languages. Okay, so on the language part, you're fine. So no issue there. And then again, it's cut. It says there's a demand for IT specialists to counter, and then I can't read anymore. So sorry, it's just cutting it on Facebook. I'm not sure why. I just can't read the rest of it. So yeah, if you have an IT part in your training, not just sales, but IT, that maximizes your chances, obviously. But the permit, even if you're a superstar, let's say you're the superstar of all the superstars, if you're non-EU, unfortunately, the Swiss won't hire you unless maybe you do a startup with someone. So let's say you have an idea of a startup in biotech. You invented a product and you want to be a partner with someone and open offices in Switzerland. You're going to invest millions in Switzerland to start your product in Switzerland. Probably they get you a permit for that. But, you know, if you're just applying for a position, they won't do a permit. So yeah, you went to Johns Hopkins. Here we're getting a little bit more on the personal consultation on Facebook. But it looks like you're applying for a job from what I'm understanding, reading your messages, meaning that, again, you're basically fighting against the local market. And if you don't have EU nationality, as an American, it seems like you studied and you worked in the States. So I assume, and maybe I'm wrong, that you have a US nationality. So it's going to be very much, even if you went to the best schools, you have a great career, unfortunately, they will always prefer the local EU nationalities for the work permit, because the process to get a permit from someone abroad is huge. It's humongous. I've done through the process for people I hired. It's humongous. I mean, it's a huge file. So yeah, I think at this stage, what I say, basically my answer is very simple. For non-EU nationals, there's only 2 options. It's the international organizations or starting a business. So either you work for an international organization like the UN, but not everyone has that type of profile. And from your profile, it looks like you're not really in the foreign policy or not-for-profit type of sector. So this won't really apply and will be a straight line. Or you start your own business in Switzerland, but then you need to come with income and have the finances to do that and the traction and have a business idea, etc., etc. I mean, you're starting a business. So yeah, those are the only two ways as a non-EU to put your foot and settle in Switzerland. Unfortunately, if you need to find a job, work for an employer, you need a EU nationality. So it's just the way it is for now. So I don't know if it's going to evolve maybe in the next years, but for non-EU, I mean, it's really, really a big problem right now to settle in Switzerland. So so a lot of people maybe go and train themselves in Switzerland, and you know they try to maybe find a network in Switzerland and see if they can get maybe someone that would be interested in their skills to do it. But it's, I mean, I want to be honest with you. I mean, the chances of that happening is very, very minor. And I've seen a lot of expats that are hiring lawyers that cost them a lot of money. I had a friend who did that. She was from Syria. She spent a lot of money on lawyers' fees to get a permit, and she got nothing. She spent thousands of Swiss francs and got absolutely nothing, because basically you need an employer's offer. So you need someone that actually offers you a job on paper, a contract, so that you can get your permit. So and the authorities will look at that. They will check the validity, if it's a true company with you know, an address and phone number and exists. So it's serious. So really someone that can tell you, I can get you a permit, I would be very cautious. And I say this in my videos to protect expats, because I think there's a lot of scam going on. And that's what I do, is I understand the Swiss market. So I know that a lot of organizations want to make money off of expats by selling them all kinds of things and services and products that, you know, are not going to be useful in the end. And especially with permits. I mean, there's people saying, we can get you a permit. If you don't have an offer, I mean, if you don't have a job offer in your hand, it's impossible. So I don't know how they plan on doing this. And even if they do have contacts with the local authorities, you still need the paperwork. So really, whether you're applying for an entrepreneur type of a permit, which is a little bit different, you still need to build a file. And of course, I could assist people in doing that in terms of what do you need in the file to make your case and be solid. And it's quite comprehensive to do that. But if you say, okay, I'm coming to Switzerland and I will get a permit somehow, I would say that's a little bit delusional. So be very careful about what people will sell you out there. Again, only two ways in my view. You start a business, or you work for the UN basically, or a very big international organization, because then they don't care wherever you're coming from. Or you marry someone from Switzerland, and then of course I think that's valid also in the United States. If you get married, then you have the permit and everything. So so yeah, those are the only two ways that would be valid in my view. So and I have posted these links in my previous Q&A, I believe, about or Monday motivation video, where I posted the actual links to read about what you need based on your nationality, what type of paperwork. But it's quite comprehensive. I mean, they want to check. They will do a full check on where you live. You know, of course, you need to pay for this, but without a work contract, it's not even worth thinking about it. So, and again, I'm very honest with expats who contact me from outside of EU. I say, I'm sorry if you're not looking for a job in the international organizations. I know that it's not possible for you. Even if I help you, even if I activate my network, no one is going to offer a job when they know they need to do all this work to get a permit. It's just not cost effective for companies. If you look at it from a business standpoint, if you're a business owner and you need to go through hiring someone almost to do that for you, because you need to do a file, you need to do a motivation letter, you need to show proof that there's no one around available, you have to check with the local unemployment office. I went through the steps. Again, I did it as HR. I had to file paperwork. It took us 3 months altogether and cost us close to 10,000 Swiss francs. So it's not a small thing. It's a full-time employee that works on this, developing the file and working with even a lawyer to make sure everything is there. It would cost too much money. So that's why, and I hope this video explains a little bit why people from outside of EU are not selected or are not retained for the interview process. The cost of getting someone from outside of EU to do the paperwork, to have this person fully work on board is just tremendous, and it's of course for an employer it's not working out. Yeah, those steps sound intense. They are, and I've been through the process. So as the employer, wanting to bring someone from the US that was selected for a job, and of course as HR, you know, you do whatever the company needs, but it was very, very tough to get the permit, and until the last minute you don't know if you're going to get it. So as the employee, imagine if I make you an offer to come to work with our company, and at the same time I'm doing the paperwork, and at the end I'm not getting you a permit. What do? You know, you moved, you brought your family, you have expenses incurred, you know, what do? You know, it would be a bad taste in the mouth of the employee as well. So to avoid the disappointment on both ends, I think companies now say it's just too much. It's not going to be cost effective, too many risks, again, of the permit not coming through. So they prefer to go with hiring people from EU. At least they know they can get them a permit. And with the votation against massive immigration, that might change as well. So in the future, we might find that even people from EU won't be selected or won't be part of the final list. And I've seen even on jobs where it states that you need to live in Switzerland and you need a valid permit, meaning it eliminates anyone who's outside of Switzerland. So the criteria to get in is just getting tougher and tougher. So just have to be aware of that. I think it's part of the context, I call it. It's not just you not being good enough to be selected. It's the context of the market and the legal context and what employers are looking for. So it's nothing really you can do. I think at some point you just have to say, okay, this is how it works. There's other markets for you, maybe if you're non-EU, that you can apply and also have a great career. You just have to know, and that's also what I do with my communication online, is try to tell people what they need to expect, basically. And I did the video on reality check just for that. It's like, look, you know, do you speak languages? Do you have a technical specificity about you? You know, how do you do with networking? Do you check the boxes? And if the answer is no, then probably it will be more of a challenge. And of course, you know, being in Switzerland by itself is not always easy, you know, living in the local culture and the local language. So you need to put all that into account to maximize your chances to see, okay, is this country right for me or not? And I want people to think about that ahead of time, because I've seen a lot of expats that are really, really struggling, meaning they came, they settled, they looked for a job, and they're completely without anything for months, sometimes even years. So they're stuck and the market is not offering them anything.